Hello, beloveds. It's Reverend Celeste Frazier, and I'm coming to you today with what I'm calling IMHO, in my humble opinion. Of course, I have a lot of feelings about things that have been going on this year for us as a country, as a nation, as a world. First, we had COVID-19. That was pretty daunting enough, with literally having lives on the line, and what we know about healthcare and how it has been for Black people. There's limited access, and then there's discrimination based on perceptions about our skin color, judging whether we are valuable or welcome. And so we've been dealing with these things for quite a long time. I've been dealing with it for more than 62 years. I have memories as a child. I remember being called a nigger when I was about 8 years old. And I know that I also carry my ancestors' pain. My grandfather was killed by white men. My great-grandfather was killed by white men because my grandfather helped a white woman get away from her abusive husband, and they couldn't find my grandfather, so they killed my great-grandfather, stuffed him in the trunk of a car. So we have different things that have happened throughout time in our generation. So we're carrying a lot of generational pain as well as our own accumulated pain, plus our perception of pain for people who are part of our racial makeup, because we are put in a category by virtue of being African Americans, by virtue of being of African descent. And so we have a lot of challenges to deal with. I want us to really look at IMHO, imagination. It's time for us to use our imagination. It's time for us to make different choices. It's time for us to move. Yes, we've been moving, but we want to move in a way that is intentional and methodical. H, be honest with our feelings, be honest with our thoughts, be honest with ourselves about the mistakes that we've made, and be honest with ourselves about the accomplishments that we have made as well. Oh, omniscience. Lean into the omnipotent omniscience. Lean into the mind of God. Lean into its wisdom and its power. Indeed, it is the only power that is. And so I know that there have been a lot of communications that have come from a lot of places. And this whole thing about the deaths of Brianna, of Ahmad, and of George. And this is not the first time that we've had to deal with multiple deaths in a 2-month period. We've had days and weeks when, Black men and women were being killed on a weekly basis in 2015. And so we're dealing with all of this, and then we try to use our nonviolent communication, our prayer and demonstration, asking for peaceful conversations. And we get infiltrated by President Trump's anarchist followers from his dog whistle. And all of them coming in their Black gear, their hoodies, planting bricks in neighborhoods, busting down brick buildings, with jackhammers or whatever. So we have, all of these things that are further inciting us while we're just dealing with our grief. We're dealing with grief, and anger is part of that grief. And so what I know is that this country set up a standard, as it's in our preamble of the United States Constitution. All men have been endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yes, it was those men who wrote it, young white men who wrote it for themselves, not for Black men, not for Asian men, not for Hispanic men, for themselves, who were slave owners, talking about men's liberties. So they were unable at that time, and we have since been unable to fulfill the truth that we are endowed with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a race of Black people. I think it's time that we have a new system. The people who set the old system did not live up to their own standards. And how do we do that? Through our imagination. We listen to our young people. We listen to their ideas. We have tried new ideas. They have worked to a certain degree, and it's part of a relay race. We have to pass it on to the next fastest runner, to a faster runner than that, a faster runner than the person who preceded them. And so this race is not over by any means. So we have to look at the accomplishments and the gains that have been made. President Obama's organization, My Brother's Keeper, and the Obama Foundation have come up with an 8-can't wait list to address just the police brutality aspect. They do a number of works in other areas, but they came up with this Campaign Zero. The 8 starts with number 1, banning strangleholds and chokeholds in the police department. Number 2, requiring de-escalation. Number 3, requiring a warning before even pulling a weapon. Number 4, exhausting all de-escalation actions. Number 5, duty to intervene, meaning other officers can intervene if these things aren't happening. Number 6, banning shooting moving vehicles. Number 7, establishing a use of force that is in alignment with the standards of humanity. 8, requiring all efforts be recorded. Body cams, there's lots of equipment that the police departments are afforded. And by doing these things, it will decrease police brutality more than 70%. So there are things that we need to do as well for taking care of ourselves. We've been in grief for a very long time. And of course, anger is part of that grief. If you are blessed enough to still be employed and you have a human resources department and you have an employee assistance program, take advantage of that. Take advantage of that and see someone, see a therapist, see someone who can support us through our mental anguish, our depression, our disappointment. We're grieving, yes, because we're not being treated as human beings. And we're grieving because of all of our efforts that we put forth, including electing a Black president. Even that wasn't enough for us to be respected, to have our lives honored. And so we're grieving and we need support. There's a National Alliance for Mental Illness. There are people there who can assist, a lot of them for no pay. A lot of insurance companies are suspending payment right now. All cities have a line with services. Most of them are 311. Contact them. Get whatever services that you can get from your city. Now comes the fighting part, register to vote. That is our greatest tool. Get your children 18 and over registered to vote. Take people to the polls with you when you go vote. Vote in every local election, judges, dog catchers, whatever, education, the people who are in your city council, people who are in your local government, your mayor, your state government, your governor, your senators, both at the state level and those who are elected to the federal level. We bless the police that are passing by, knowing that they're going to a place of peace within themselves as they go about maintaining peace. So fill out your census. We need to know what the real demographics are. We've been underrepresented in terms of our numbers for way too long. Find out who your city councilmen are, your city councilwomen. Find out who your state senators are. Find out who they are so you can communicate with all of your politicians whose jurisdiction you are in. Okay. We are mourning. We are mourning George Floyd. We are holding watch for his family, for all of us who have been affected by his horrific death. So we're also in labor. So we're now having an opportunity to give birth to something new, something better. Okay? So do your part in your lane. Each of us has a genius. Some of us, speakers, writers, organizers, whatever it is that you know that you love doing, it's likely your genius. Get your rest. Take care. Doing this work, we have to keep restoring ourselves. Right? You can choose whether or not you want to educate white people. It's not necessary that you do. If you care to do so, you can do so. There are more white people who are listening. There are more white people who are taking responsibility for their unknown prejudices, their unknown privilege. They are awakening, some of them willingly, some of them are struggling. And we can decide if we want them to learn. We have tools to learn, to read, to look at movies, to just learn about our culture, as do they. And if the interest is there, and it is now, because, hey, it seems like it's a matter of life and death. It's a matter of financial life. It's a matter of physical life. We're all here together. God designed it that way. So we got to also use the power of prayer. We've also got to know that prayer works. We mustn't dismiss it. My friend Galen McDowell was telling me that the ministers at Christ Universal Temple, CUT, that Johnny Coleman founded, now under the leadership of Reverend Derek Wells, the men will pray. And, this one man is a business owner, and, Galen invited them that the leaders would see his business as invisible. Right? And, they hit that area twice, and his business was not affected. So prayer does work, mainly on our own minds, on our own energy field, right? Because we can't pray for something external without covering ourselves in a new understanding. So when I do the midday meditations, it's to keep us connected, to source, to keep me connected to source, for you to keep you connected to source, to get new insights about that connection, to understand the power that is within you, that you do not have to succumb to outer influences when that which is within you is greater than what is in the world. Right? So let's be using our imaginations. Let's take some movement with our passion. Let's be honest with ourselves about our feelings. Let's be honest with ourselves about our accomplishments. Let's be honest with ourselves about our self-care needed. And let's go to the omnipotent, the omniscience. In my humble opinion, these are the things that are necessary for us to do. I hope it matters in some way for you. Namaste.